Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a nice positional game to share with you. This was played at the ongoing St. Louis Rapid Blitz, a round 2 rapid game, 25 minutes, 10-second increment, played on August 11th. On the white end, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave playing against Levon Aronian. So a nice victory here for Team French defense. Not too common to see the French score a victory at this level, even if it is a rapid format. So out of this classical French, we now see D takes E. This is the burn variation. And Aronian doesn't spend time at this moment to secure f6. He instead snakes his bishop around to this main diagonal, eventually looking to trade it off for one of the white knights. So by playing in this way, he's clearly saying, I'm welcome to an imbalanced structure, a case of doubled f pawns should white capture on f6. Not how white plays it. Continues normally, getting some standard moves in here. There is competition between these knights over the e5 square. Knight backs off, pin broken, the usual same sides castles game. Rook on a half-open file, and now some overprotection of the bishop. This frees up the queen to go elsewhere in some cases. I'll highlight one such case soon enough. From here we have c3. If the knight dives into the center right now, knight e5, this is a nice line that is available to black. There's a way that white could easily misplay this. The knight hops into the center, you can take. And after pawn takes, you do not have to move this knight just yet. What's available from this position, now that the bishop is on the main diagonal, what's available is queen d5, threatening a mate in 1. And in the case of this interference move, knight takes e4, that would be a blunder. Knight e4 you could take, and there's an issue here. Bishop is defended. If bishop takes bishop, there's this tactical idea. Knight takes f2, you're on the queen, you're threatening mate. Again, the rook, a nice supporter of the bishop in this case. And here's a way that white could blunder in this position, aside from knight e4. If you go with f3, check out this line. There's bishop c5, check. And now this cool follow-up knight g4. Ouch. Got these beautiful diagonals threatening a killer fork, and the knight is poisoned. There'd be mate on g2. Anyhow, how black plays it, puts the rook on e8, overprotection of the bishop. Nice solid follow-up with c3, and now queenside expansion. a5, a4, queen d3, and at this moment, we now see bishop captures knight. Notice the move. Timing. When is it captured? Only after the queen has exhausted a move. We don't want to take and allow the queen to recapture in one go and develop. Let it take 2 tempi to go ahead and capture on f3. So this is the moment, the more appropriate moment to exchange bishop for knight and follow up with c6. Things are cool, nice and solid really for each side. Pawns on light, bishop on dark, white playing with the bishop pair, remains about an equal position. All right, centralization, queen a5, bishop d2, queen d5, and we're pulled straight into an ending. Now, this fork going on, get the queen exchange and the capture towards the center. Okay, now how to actually win this position? Things are solid for black in the center. With this pawn up on a4, you can't quite get a minority attack in there. If it's still back on a5, you have this idea of b5 and b4, and eventually there's going to be a nice target for the black pieces. One of white's queenside pawns will be a nice target for the black pieces, but because it is up on this a4 square, it's not so easy to create a target in this case. Now, follow up, we have bishop d3. That is a sensitive point, b5. Reposition for the knight. And from here we have b3. Now, the computer is not a fan of this. A bit of a surprising move, b3. Opens up the a file for this rook. How the computer wants to play it, much slower approach. So what it has its eye on is a3 and backing the bishop off to c1. Secures b2, much more slow approach. The bishop go back on home base, and then it's looking forward to some play on the king's side. I'm not sure how much progress black can really make on the queen side. It's really going to turn into, it seems at least, a king side specific game, and these bishops are looking pretty good. If you just sit back there on home base and slowly try to improve with the pawns on the king side. But white plays with b3, and now we're going to have this very active rook. Before white can challenge the rook on the open file, this rook is given responsibility. This knight, by the way, is out of play, so gets back into play, sort of. It's trying to extract the rook. Okay, it is given a kick, but it stays active. Rook a3. f3. Knight a5. Bishop b5. Where to go with the rook? Rook b8. Almost looks like a mouse slip. Rook is supposed to be on a half open or open file. What's the story here? Well, Aronian is saying, well, I understand you may want to secure b3 with bishop a4. You do that, I have b5 and your bishop is squashed. So what is white supposed to do about b3 now? Moves it. Can't defend it. Knight c4 is the follow-up. Knight e2 is played here. If you take the knight, you're dead. Positionally crushed in multiple ways. This pawn kills the knight, and thank you so much for this wonderful square on d5. This pawn is not going to be too happy. Okay, we don't have bishop for knight exchange. Knight e2 it is. Knight takes bishop. Rook takes knight, and h5. I like this move. These finer points right here in this ending, slower position still. Black is doing well. The more active rooks, the better structure. And with h5, two things happening. Got your flight square, and you're saying, don't even think about expanding on the king side. If you establish a pawn on g4, my knight's starting, is going to be a little concerned. Where's my next home going to be? What am I doing after g5? Forget about all that. This idea, g4 by white, is sniffed out. And in general, you should be thinking more about expanding with going two squares with one of your pawns near your king after a queen exchange. Try to extract the maximum. Think beyond the flight square. And that's what we have right here. Follow up, h4, rook c8, this knight, big responsibility, defend c3, big difference, I would say, between these knights. They're both under control. This one is given responsibility, this one is under control. Very good defender, though, for the king side. This is all about who has the healthier structure, really. Black has the healthier structure. Backward pawn here on c3, not cool. All right, follow up, bishop improvement. Pawn break. D takes, bishop takes. This is now hit 3 times, some more defense. Remains about an equal position, but it's tricky to hold this together for white. The knight is now in a pin. Broken. Follow up, g6. Slow, steady progress. It's a healthy move. You got a square for the king. No rush. Everything is under control. Doubled up. King improvement. Bishop needs to find a new home. And from here we have c4. Computer doesn't like this idea of c4. The b pawn is now going to be a target. Difficult to defend. It will drop off shortly. Computer says you have to try and hold tight here. Rook c1, rook b1. Not the most fun moves to play for a human. That's how it wants to run it, though. All right, we see this sort of lashing out move with c4. We get the exchange of the isolated pawn for the d pawn soon. Pawn takes, rook takes b. Rather than rook takes b, it has its eye on a blockade. Wants to play bishop d6 and say, don't rush. Don't take b4 just yet. It's not going anywhere. All right, we see the exchange. Pawn runs. Bishops are exchanged. In the end, black is up a pawn, still considered holdable, but tricky, clearly. All right, there's nothing to do with these pawns. This arrangement is perfect. And from here, it is all about just advancing the passer. So rook to an ideal rank. And we keep this active rook, target a pawn, and roll with the passer. Rook d6, nice try. You're trying to get behind the pawn. Not allowed. Perfect piece. There's one base point. You got that covered. And you are right behind the passer. From here, we have rook a2. After this one, it's considered lost. Apparently, the best is to welcome a rook exchange with rook d3. This rook is really not a well-positioned piece. If there isn't anything exciting happening on f6, it's just not really a productive piece. There's no tricks for white with this capture and some follow-up knight check, knight on dark, both rooks on light. There's no forks nearby for white. So nothing's happening here. White tries to make something happen with this, this maneuver right here, but it's too slow. It's not working out. It says best is rook d3, a rook exchange, and then advance the pawn like this, rook b2, knight d5, valuation about -1. Okay, how it plays out in this one, we see the rook transfer, rook a2 to a6, and the knight backs off. There's nothing happening here. These piece sacrifices go nowhere. This pawn is too good. The knight also, where is it going exactly? To a square where it prevents these rooks from maybe trying to get behind the pawn. Follow-up is knight d3, pop quiz, the only one I have for you. What move would you play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, a basic two-move tactic. We have rook captures knight, and this one goes no further. MVL resigns. Knows what's coming. A simplification of the position into a one rook and pawn ending. So if the game continued with rook captures rook, we would have this follow-up fork. Okay, pick which rook you want to defend, maybe something like this. If the game continued, and here's the thing, this rook, the white rook, is going to have to be completely passive. And eventually black is going to win because white's going to run out of moves. The rook can never move. Pawn's going to advance. So if this one did play out, it might look something like this. The rook on b3 is fantastic, and what do you do? Or even in this position, if you go in this direction, you could already take a pawn. King here, now what? King step over, you could start mopping up these pawns, and if you don't step over, you defend and go for something like this. Rook is stuck. So being up a pawn, rook ideally placed behind it, active versus passive rook. At this level, these guys know that this is completely lost. Anyhow, what are your thoughts with this one? Nice victory, I would say, for the French defense. Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.